welcome back to another episode of 40,000 Layers. We're going to be carrying on working on the Tyranids today. So painting and lore. And that is Sheepy's prompt. Boom. Very extensive.
The Tyranids like to mess about with essentially their gene stealers are kind of their first, very often the first wave. We'll talk about gene stealers in a bit, but like in more detail in a bit. But essentially they're almost a separate army, but they're still linked with the hive mind. The thing is they are specifically designed as infiltrators and different to the lictors, who kind of like, they're very stealthy and they basically like go to a planet and then stealth around. The gene stealers will go to a planet and like psychically impregnate people, and then those people give birth to psychically brainwashed version. I did.
What?
Do you know what
I
mean? As I said, we'll go in. That will probably be its own episode, to be honest.
You can't be doing that to me. That's a lot.
Yeah. So you'll quite often find gene stealers. They are also kind of shock troopers. They've got very strong like claws, and that can rip through even like Terminator armor.
Mm-hmm. I know like Terminator is a thing, but like in my head it's just Arnie.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal. I think.
You know what the Terminators in 40k though, right? Have we gone over? We haven't done a Space Marine episode, to be fair.
No, I just have been imagining like a big old Arnie man. No. Yeah. That's fine.
Well, so
I'm like, I'm assuming it's someone big and strong and ridiculous. And I've just been rolling with it. I've been like, yeah, the Terminators. Like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. The Terminators are essentially Space Marines with like slightly bigger, more heavily armored battle suits, essentially.
Okay.
Don't worry about it too much for now. We'll get on. We'll get out of the Terminators when we do the Space Marines. I'll go into proper detail then.
Well, you asked me the question. Stealers, that wasn't my aside. That was yours.
Do you want to? Have you done the poll yet for the?
Yes, the poll for March. Wait, no, January, February, March. For April.
I was going to ask if you wanted to add the gene stealers in there so that we might be able to do them earlier.
Too late now, but
we'll add them to the next poll. They'll be part of the next options.
Yes.
So essentially, the gene stealers will implant, like aliens. It's a lot like that,
right? But psychic babies.
Well, you kind of, yeah. It essentially alters the DNA, which is, I guess, why they're called gene stealers.
Are they like real people babies, or this is a bit too nitty gritty, really?
No, I mean it's gross, but essentially the gene stealer implants victims with their DNA.
Okay.
And then the person pretty much has like a unstoppable impulse to create more people, which passes on the gene stealer DNA to the child, which makes them a gene stealer hybrid,
right.
Which basically forms a psychic link to the hive mind and ensures loyalty. And as they keep populating and breeding, it forms a gene stealer cult, and they slowly get more and more gene stealery, essentially.
Okay.
And then, like a good few hundred years later, suddenly there's a massive gene stealer uprising cult thing on a random planet, and then the Tyranids show up and they're like, yo, what up? But we're not talking about that.
Okay. Carry on.
Very often by the time the Hive fleet turns up, there's like millions of gene stealers in the gene stealer cult.
Oh, okay.
And there's
they
a
don't
huge
really
like
need to be there. They're just there for dropping paintbrushes.
yeah, that's why they're there.
That's why they turn up.
It's very useful in situations with like a heavily defended planet, because they essentially turn the population against themselves, and half of the population sometimes will be a rebellion by the time the Tyranids get there. So the Tyranids don't even need to lose much biomass fighting. They just kind of drop down and then eat everything.
Best way to live.
Yeah, they when the Tyranids take a planet, they essentially consume the atmosphere, the sea, and all biomass. And then it's just a rock. I mean, there you go, there's a rock. Talking about the Tyranids themselves, and like their weaponry. So you have things like the bone swords. Bone swords are used by like the Tyranid warriors and the Hive tyrants sometimes. I think they're used by the gene stealers as well. Maybe, yeah. They're essentially like the stuff on the back or the Hormagaunts, like spiky hands.
Yeah.
They're a bit like that. They're kind of made of chitin.
So this is not a sword hand.
It is. It is a sword,
Oh.
but it's made from the same kind of
Yeah, they're all made from
yeah.
scoop. So
Very often, like, of course, they have like the regular claws, teeth. There's a lash whip, which is essentially like grown muscle that they'll whip and kind of like like lash away. Sometimes they can have barbs on them and stuff. It's kind of
I saw those actually, like when I was looking at minis. That was ridiculous.
A classic Hive Tyrant will have I think it's a venom cannon and a whip.
We were so close to having a Hive Tyrant as the model, but I was reminded that it takes longer to paint than we have in the show.
I wonder who would have reminded you of that. What a bastard.
Life, but
yeah,
not to be melodramatic. It's fine. Could have had a Hive Tyrant, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. They do tend to develop essentially like a whole load of claws and talons and teeth and so sometimes even I think there's a Wrecking Ball Carnifex that was like developed, which is essentially like a Carnifex but even more heavily armored, and its entire job is to just like jump through walls basically. So that's fun.
I'm not sure I know what a Carnifex is.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like if I don't know what that is. Should I Google it?
So a Carnifex is one of the bigger juggernauty type uh Tyranids. It's close. It's pretty much always close combat, as far as I know, and it's usually used to take out things like Lehman Russes.
Oh, it looks like Rex from Mass Effect.
I don't know Mass Effect, but
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, no. Everyone else is gonna be like, "What do you mean?" But I feel like it looks like Rex from Mass Effect. Okay, it's if I can, yeah, I'll see if I can paste it to you. This guy.
Okay.
Well, that's the model. That guy. That kind of thing.
Yes. They're big lumbering grumpers,
Yeah.
and they stomp on things.
Okay.
Um.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying it looks like Rex. Ooh.
So we're going to be going into the weapons quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some weapons that are very disturbing. I'll do my best to kind of get as many of them as I can detailed, I guess. But
Okay.
I probably won't get all of them. I'll try and hit the classics at the very least.
Okay.
And then if we do another Tyranid one in the future, I'll go even deeper into it.
Yeah. Like.
So first up, because we're going alphabetically, because that's how I got my tabs in a row. We'll go with the Barbed Strangler. So the Barbed Strangler is a ranged weapon. It's projectile weapon, and as with all Tyranid weapons, it's very creepy bio looking. It looks like, a mutated arm or something.
Okay.
And it essentially has the barrel is a muscle tube because obviously it fires, and then the ammo magazine is a sack of seeds.
Seeds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it pumps a seed into the barrel where the seed starts to grow, and then when it's launched, it has an explosive it has explosive growth where it essentially shoots out these kind of hooked tendrils, which pretty much either wrap around or hook into the target or just literally rip it apart.
I kind of love it.
It's a little bit like a a really nasty hooked net.
Yeah.
Except for it explodes like.
Kind of love it.
Yeah, no. It gets worse. Don't worry.
I'm so excited.
Oh. There's the Bio Cannon, which very often goes on things like Hierophants and Harridans. It's essentially bio goo, like a ball of bio goo that is electrified.
Electrified.
Yeah, well, it's like bioelectricity, but it's still electricity, and it also contains venomous and corrosive maggots.
Why are the Tyranids so hardcore?
Yeah, right. It gets worse. Don't worry. So when the bio blob hits a target, it hits it with acid, poison that melts through basically anything, and then you have the maggoty bastards who blah 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 along.
Good for them. You're gonna shoot someone, shoot them good.
Yes. Then you have the Death Spitter.
Great.
Very often used by Tyranid warriors. It's slightly more complex than the first one we talked about. I can't remember what it was called now off the top of my head.
The barb.
Which is essentially a little bit like a machine gun. It pumps maggoty creatures, let's call them, into the barrel and then like fires them. And when the maggots hit, they essentially contain like acid and poison, and when they hit, they spray it everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you're armored, really, because the point is not to like penetrate. The point is to splatter like maggots on people, which then explode in venom and acid and all that type of thing.
Yeah, that's a little bit dramatic.
To give you a little bit extra, one of the Hive Fleet Hydra, has a version of the Death Spitter where the maggots don't explode. They actually crawl around and bury into the flesh and then explode.
See, that's the hardcore I was looking for.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the Devourer Weapon. It's partially rotted and infested with flesh worms, which are the reason why it's rotted is because that's what the flesh worms like. Little parasites. They almost look like ticks, except for they're about the size of a hand as opposed to, a nail.
Kind of getting grossed out by the Tyranids now, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Finally.
Essentially, what the Devourer does is it sends like a bioelectric jolt through the gun, which like aggravates the little parasites, and then also like convulses the gun so it fires. And it fires them at the enemy, and the flesh worms immediately burrow into anything they find, eat their way through anyone's body, along their nervous system, so along their like nerves and their what's the other thing? You have nerves and you have along their blood tubes, let's call it.
Veins and arteries.
Veins and arteries, thank you. Until they reach the brain, whereupon they eat the brain.
Tasty brain.
And like it's so painful that people will go insane before they die.
Yeah,
because it's some bullshit.
Nerve pain hurts like full stop.
Yeah.
Getting eaten. Yikes.
So that's the Devourer.
Love it.
They suck.
They chomp.
The weapon's a bit more of a it's almost like a beehive, except for you fire the bees. But
just realized I haven't written in my paint guide to paint the tongue.
Oh.
Obviously, I'm gonna need to do that.
Yeah.
Where's my other guide?
This one's pretty simple. Flesh hooks. They're used by lictors.
Yum.
they're literally little like super sharp, solid spear tips
Mm-hmm.
that like hook into flesh. So the lictor will fire them and it will hook someone, and then they can just pull them in and eat them or like rip them apart.
I feel like they're very efficient
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh yeah. Then we have the flesh borers.
Borers.
Yes.
Okay.
So the flesh borers, similar to the last one. It is a gun that's mostly used by termagants, so it's like the ranged version of the Hormagaunts.
Mm-hmm.
And also gargoyles. Gargoyles are flying ones. We'll probably talk about them in a bit. Um, it is it like the last one. It's a gun that is a nest with. They have flesh borer beetles. Oh, sorry, borer beetles, where these beetles lay their eggs and then hatch, mature, and lay some more eggs. And it's basically like a hive that just continuously makes its own ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
In the gun,
if
or
yes,
okay.
so it's like in the magazine compartment, it's just a hive of borer beetles.
They just have like a nice. They must leave it room.
There, which then obviously, like all the Tyranid weapons, essentially when you click the trigger, it sends them into the barrel and like kind of wakes them up with a little bit of a and then fires them.
The adrenaline from being
Um,
shot out of a gun.
yeah, and essentially the when they're fired, they get kind of like roided up by biochemical electro nonsense. It is
Yeah.
what it is. And they get fired at like super speed.
Okay.
The beetles themselves don't have eyes. They don't need eyes
You don't need eyes. They're getting
because
shot where they're going.
yeah, that's the thing is like if they can see where they're going, they may like change the path they're going in or like struggle against it or something. What they do is they literally just they bore through everything they can. Like armor, flesh, bone, rock, whatever it is they hit, they bore through it.
It's burrowing time.
And if they hit something they can't bore through, like if it was like just a wall or something, then they'll just die.
Oh.
They do have a you know what? I'm gonna send you this picture just because it's gross.
Great.
Well, you know, like it's just the beetle itself.
I don't
But
know if I want it. Ooh.
I want you to see because you can see it has a little helmet.
Oh, it does.
So that it doesn't hurt its head when it hits something.
Oh.
It's not at all cute, by the way, despite the sounds Tash is making.
It's adorable. It's awful.
It's awful, but it does have a little
But it has
helmet,
a
which
little
really makes me
helmet.
laugh.
No.
And it is essentially the flesh borers. As I remember, I'm pretty sure the flesh borers are the ones that like bore into the flesh, and yes, it hurts, and yes, it's terrible and stuff. But I think they also lay eggs, so more can like burst out, which it isn't a fun time.
Nice and horrifying.
The Impaler Cannon. We'll move on from the really horrific things. The Impaler Cannon is literally it fires about 6 foot bone spines at like supersonic speeds. They can actually puncture tanks with that.
I mean, I just kind of love like how metal they are. You know, like I'm just gonna fire giant bone spears at the Imperium of Man, so I can
Yeah.
eat them in a minute.
And obviously the gun itself is a creature, as all of these things are. Like they're creatures bred. So like when it fires the spines, uh, it can actually slightly move where the spine is going because it's still connected to the spine. Because when it fires the spine, the inside of the gun, the creature is like still connected and kind of gets ripped out. So the gun itself fires like I can't remember how many, but quite a few spines. After it does, it just dies.
It's just gross. It does remind me of bees, where obviously if they sting you, sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit, then
Yeah.
that's also goodbye bee. But yeah, the Tyranids will just make more.
Yeah. Oh, something I didn't say about the lash whip is obviously it's a whip, but it's also like a kind of crustacean-y spidery thing. So it can also move how it wants to as well to like hit the target.
Can't
So that's
just
creepy,
bring that up like casually after.
right? I
No
mean,
big deal.
all of these things are alive. Like
Yeah.
they're bioengineered, but they do kind of have their own thing going
How do
on.
they feel about this indentured moider?
I mean, it's their
Have you asked
purpose.
them?
I mean, they're hive mind like everything else. So
Yeah. So the beetles.
it's like asking a worker ant if it's happy being a worker ant. Aside from that one film, I don't think anyone really cares.
Good film though.
Yeah. So I think that gives you. Oh, I should do the. Yes, I think that's the only other one I should do. So I'm going to send you a picture of this.
Okay. Give me a minute though.
No problem. No rush. So the last one I'm going to talk about is because I really like the Biovores, which
Oh
is
yeah, I saw minis of these and I was like, so adorable.
these are spore mines.
I think they look super cool.
Uh, they come in a few different forms. You know what? I'm gonna send you this picture too because poor bloody guardsman. It gives you an idea of how they act. Um,
I can't really tell what's going on there, just so you have to describe
so
it.
there's a couple of guardsmen desperately hiding against walls and stuff as Tyranid spore mines float about.
They just float around and explode. It's like ocean mines.
Yes, it's very much like an ocean mine, except for that, yeah, they can float and all that. They are grown by biovores. Biovores are essentially an artillery piece of the Tyranids. So they fire these. You can kind of consider them almost to be like cannon shells, but if the shells land and don't hit anything, they don't explode. They just start floating around, and if anyone gets too close, they just randomly explode.
I mean, effective either
Um,
way for the Tyranids.
they have an internal gas bladder. Who doesn't? Which inflates them, allowing them to like float. They don't. They don't detonate on impact. They detonate when they get a sense of anything non-hive mind, anything
Non-Tyranid.
non-Tyranid. Uh, there have been reports of spore mines floating around for like a decade
Oh,
before exploding.
well, that's not.
So like, yeah.
It's like proper ocean mines.
Oh yeah. Um, there are also three different types. You've got the frag ones, which have like a really hard outer shell, which explodes and sends fragmentation everywhere.
Yeah.
You have poison, which essentially they're filled with poison and toxins and neurotoxins and hemotoxins and aflatoxins and inorganic poisons and phage cells.
All the fun ones then.
Yeah. And essentially, when they explode, they just gas everywhere. And some venom, like liquid venom that just like
just throw in a
seeps into
kitchen
your...
sink as well while you're at
it. Yeah. And then you have the bioacids, which is just essentially you get too close and they explode acid everywhere. Stuff that can like melt through tanks and things. So that's fun too. And yeah, the Biovore's just like a four-legged creature with a huge cannon on its back, and it just fires out those spore mines.
So do people just have to like avoid them? Can they set them off, on purpose? I guess like safely. How do they negate?
Yeah, I mean
that?
you can shoot them and kill them.
Okay, right. Because I was going to say if it's like a proximity thing with non-hive mind, I guess you could just throw a rabbit eye or something. But
I mean,
like
it's kind of harsh to the rabbit, but sure, yeah.
It's the Imperium of Man; they don't care. But yeah, otherwise it's like, well, if it has to be something non-Tyranid but alive, kind of. How do?
Yeah, I mean, you can just shoot it.
Shooting works, so it's fine.
Because it is alive itself. If you just shoot it, then its impulse to explode stops, and then it's just
unalived.
Yeah,
it's not a live bomb anymore.
The Tyranids have their weaknesses. Like I was talking about the synaptic the synaptic units like the Hive Tyrants or the Tyranid Warriors. If you just have a crap ton of like these guys, the Hormagaunts, they will act according to the hive mind tactics. Almost like a program where they act out their programming in complex ways. If you take out any synaptic creatures like a Tyranid Warrior or a Hive Tyrant or whatever, the surrounding like Hormagaunts and Termagaunts and like the main core of their army will either outright die through the shock, like the psychic shock of their synaptic creature dying, or will go to their default stance.
Okay.
Which isn't a tactic. Like they'll either blindly charge and get ripped apart, or they will
hide or whatever else.
Hide and yeah, like it essentially like it's a very good tactic to just take out all of. But the thing is if you take out a synaptic creature and there's more synaptic creatures around, like if there's like 5 Tyranid warriors and you kill one, it doesn't really do very much. Like
you're gonna be doing that all day, yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So yeah, talking on the Tyranids, they understandably are pretty heavily feared in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Because invariably they don't know fear. They're not like, they don't have amazing technology, but they don't really need it when they can just mindlessly charge.
Yeah.
So when a hive fleet turns up, it essentially causes such a bit that there's so many Tyranids, and they're not connected to the warp because they're not a consciousness. They don't have a soul. They're just a shadow, which is why it's called Shadow in the Warp, because they turn up and it basically blocks off communication between psychers. So if you're an astropath, for example, you lose your freaking mind.
Oh no.
So yeah, the Tyranids will turn up, attack a planet until it's completely destroyed, and consume everything and move on. And that's kind of what they've been doing. Do you know the other faction in 40k with mindless, almost hive mind like essentially not consumption of planets, but inexorable attacking, and just like they just keep charging and charging, and they it's the only other faction who uses numbers as a weapon.
Ooh, Orky boys.
No,
because I mean they just want to fight. They don't want to destroy everything. I mean, Necrons don't really have tons of numbers.
No.
So it can't be them. My brain. Hang on. Give me a second. All I'm thinking of is when the Space Marine faction was sent to like clear off a planet, and they're so good at it they take 100 years and they've only done one island. That's the story that's sticking out to me.
that was the Necron destroyers.
Oh gosh, Necron destroyers. Yeah. Why do I think the Space Marines? Because they're the bad guys. Who?
You're close.
Is so efficiently mean. I don't know. Who is it?
The Imperium.
Oh well, that's. I said Space Marines, even though my story was wrong.
Yeah, that's why I said you were close. Like, but no, like the only other faction who really uses like swarm tactics, interestingly, is the Imperium.
Because that's all they got going for them.
They got numbers. I mean, the Orcs. It can happen with the Orcs as well, but it's not really their tactic.
Yeah,
because they don't.
Tactics are for losers.
Yeah. So, kind of moving past the bio, I thought you'd enjoy the creepy guns and everything.
I did enjoy that.
And
I also like that the Imperium of Mana being compared to the Tyranids.
Yeah. A mindless hive mind that just attacks when told to. So would you like... I think I'll give you the option here, because there's a few things we can talk about. Would you like to go more into, like, the hive mind, the shadow in the warp, the whole, like, synaptic stuff? Would you like to kind of go over the kind of Tyranid tactics, I guess we'd call them?
I want to go into... go on.
Or the units, or like some more specific stuff. So kind of like, we can go into Hive Fleet Behemoth, Tyran, the Battle of Macragge, the Ultramarines, all that stuff.
I want to know more about the synaptic stuff, because I think it's really interesting.
Alright.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got to write. I don't know what's going on with my throat today.
Well,
coughs.
It's...
Lots of coughs. Okay. I'm also really liking how this is going, so I'm like nervous that something's gonna go terribly wrong.
That's good.
What color did I need? Bookman's glow.
So.
Maybe I'll do it red.
To start off, the Tyranids are essentially... It's all organic and gross, right? So you're going to have to bear with me, because we're going to have to talk about a lot of organic and gross things.
Oh, like we haven't already.
Yeah, no, I like we already have, but I just want to put that out there because I hadn't said it yet.
Yes.
The Tyranids, the smaller Tyranids, the lesser Tyranids, which some of them are still massive and terrifying, are grown in organ sacs in the vessels as they travel and as they absorb biomatter.
Mm-hmm.
They're all born on, or birthed, whatever, I guess, on hive ships.
Yeah.
A hive ship is essentially a massive bioship that is the heart of a hive fleet. They are the synapse for all the ships around them, all the bioships, and all of the factories that, like, they have bioship factories that, like, just spew out Tyranids, all the different types of Tyranids they need. And, like, God, it's hard to give you sizes, but think, you know some of the larger Imperial ships.
Yeah, like a dreadnought or something.
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah, like they're like, I'm not gonna say moon size because I think that'll be a bit too big, but they're like up there, you know. Mm-hmm. And they're also alive. You know, they're created and they live and they float through space and do all those things. And they form the basis for the Hive Fleet, which moves through the galaxy, moves through space, and just consumes so that they can get more biomass, so that they can create more.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be like an end goal. They just make more, take more, make more, take more.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, one of the possibilities is, you know, the eventual end goal is to bring back a whole load of biomass to the hive mind, the original hive mind, wherever it is, out in the black space between galaxies, maybe.
I thought you were going to say out in the sticks.
Yeah, out in the sticks.
Out in the sticks.
Just chilling in their cottage somewhere. Yeah. So, the way the hive fleets work are they essentially send out tendrils, pretty much like advanced scouts, and then the advanced scouts are followed by sections of the hive fleet, and they consume as they go, and like sometimes they get slowed down, but another tendril is still going. Mm-hmm. So at any one time, even if your planet is attacked and you hold out, it doesn't really affect the hive fleet in general, just that tendril.
Yeah.
So you can be holding out for years and have no idea that the other tendrils have moved in and around, and you're surrounded, you know, in a much more literal sense.
Yeah.
And they follow their intel, you know, like they send out lictors, they send out gene stealers, get intel back on where the tastiest planets are, and head out that way. There's no, as you said, there's no end goal, so there's never any reason to attack a place aside from biomass, aside from resources. They never use a planet, you know?
You just chomp and go.
Yeah. And we would, don't worry, we will get on to how they consume the planet. There is some lore and details on it, so. They don't use the warp to travel, but they can travel they can travel at like super speeds as well. We'll talk about it in a bit, but essentially there's a special evolution they have called a novel. They manipulate the gravity fields of star systems to get fast and light travel.
That's smart. I was wondering, like, they're not from this galaxy, but
They got here somehow.
they got here somehow. Did they not come through the warp? Did they just travel really far? Like, I
They
don't
traveled
get
really, yeah.
it.
So
Intricate.
as they travel, the only thing that causes a presence in the warp is the hive mind, which creates the shadow in the warp, which we'll talk about in a second. Also, one thing that I've never mentioned that I like, it's very possible as well. I said we might be surrounded by Tyranids, like all around our galaxy. The other possibility, of course, is that there are multiple other galaxies that have already been consumed by the Tyranids.
Yeah, they're hungry.
So, like, this might not be like, oh, we've been to one galaxy, this is our second. It could be like, we've been through like 6 or 7, and
We're just
now
keeping
we're all
on trucking.
convening on this one. So, this is a really cool little picture. I think you'll enjoy. So, here is a representation of Shadow in the Warp.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Some of us are painting faces, okay? And faces are hard.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, but they're Tyranid faces.
Ooh, that's cool.
That's like a sanctioned psyker being Shadow in the Warp fuckreed.
Man, that'd be so fun.
So the Shadow in the Warp.
Like, why don't people play with Tyranids in the tabletop very often? I feel like
Because they suck on the tabletop.
Well, they can just make new rules. Why not just do that?
Right, obviously. Essentially, the Shadow in the Warp is the Tyranid hive mind blocking connection to the warp, to the Immaterium.
Yeah.
So when the hive fleet arrives, manifesting psychic abilities or communicating psychically is nigh on impossible. You like, for psychers, they're born as psychers, right?
Yeah.
They always have this connection. When you take that away, it's a lot like sitting them in a room with a blank. They just want to kill themselves.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's probably why they all go a bit insane. Is there a reason they can do that, or
What, the Tyranids?
yeah?
It's the hive mind.
It just is. But I mean, like, is that an active thing the hive mind has decided to do, or is
It's probably an evolved part of the hive mind whereby it's like how some predators look like pretty flowers.
Yeah.
It's part of the hunting technique. If you cut off communication, it's a lot easier to eat a planet because no one's coming to check on them.
No, but that's so oddly specific towards like psychers. But like,
well, but that's the only way to communicate through the long distances.
But how do they know that yet? If they're relatively new to the system.
Well, it might have been true in the other places they were at. Like, they do have some kind of psychers, I guess. We haven't got onto their units and stuff yet, but
Okay.
essentially, The hive mind itself does have a soul, or like a presence in the warp, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's all completely, one of the things I kind of like semi theorize, and I like the mirroring between the Imperium and the Tyranids.
Yeah.
Is it's very possible that this is another way to create a chaos god. It's just a shit ton of biomass and building up like this super hive mind.
What are they going to donate to Emperor?
Oh, the Emperor doesn't need donations. He's doing all right by himself.
Wow.
He's doing all right in himself there.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting what he always wanted, right? Become a god.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like anything warp related, they kind of fuck up. So even warp travel can be messy. And it's pretty much like it's like radio static. So you can push through the Tyranid psychic blockade.
Yeah.
But even when you do, it's like Tyranids help, kind of shit.
Don't get very much of anything. Okay.
Very, very often, a planet just goes quiet and they don't hear any communications or anything.
They go on
until the Tyranids turn up on the other people's doorstep and they're like, oh shit.
That's where Oma Tyranid Persei 7 went.
So it might be an intentional, like, conscious thing that's done to cut off, or it might just be like an innate thing that they have, or like innate evolution as a hunter, or it might just be a byproduct of the synaptic hive mind communication,
Maybe they ate a bunch of blanks.
Maybe.
So I'll be surprised if I'm not in the camera for this section because I'm getting so close because I want the eyes to be good.
So, that the image I sent, because they're all connected, let's call it psychically, to the hive mind. When you kind of like push your consciousness out to try to make like psychic connection to another psyker, essentially all of the hive mind, like all of the connections of the hive mind, like all the little scribbly creatures and everything, immediately bombard your brain.
Loud.
Which is why they go insane. Because they try and like reach out, and then like 1,000 skittering alien minds are just like blah, 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 blah.
Maybe they're just trying to communicate, bro.
Yeah, the communication would be like prepared to be biomass.
Resistance is futile. Be eaten.
It's also a reason the Eldar don't really like the Tyranids. Because, the Eldar are all psychers and psychic race.
Leave my telephones alone.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to fight you? That's not fair. That's the Eldar.
It's
by the way.
it was great.
It's great, I know.
It's one of the reasons why the Tyranids are quite effective, because they essentially isolate worlds and then consume them without knowledge, and the Imperium has a harder time like reacting to them.
Yeah.
Which is why someone like the librarian of the Grand Librarian of the Ultramarines being able to predict where they're going is super useful, because they can shore up defenses and then react to an invasion, which is always nice. Very often why the stories you hear of Tyranids is like some poor bastard guardsman on a like defending a world against, raiders and occasional rebels, suddenly finds himself with like horrific giant monsters like pounding on his door, being like, "Yo, what up? Let me in. I'm hungry." It's not the best.
Sucks to be that guy.
Yeah. Oh god, there's a real horror story with the gene stealers, but I'm not gonna.
I want to talk about that Jade Steelers. Teasing me with them.
we'll do the gene stealers in a separate, because
Oh, don't be doing
the
that.
gene stealers have their own. The gene stealers have their own codex, even like gene stealer cult. So there's a lot to talk on the gene stealers. But all right, I'll give you this. So you know how I said the gene stealers like form a cult, and essentially like they're psychically mind controlled.
Yeah.
And eventually they rebel, and they they fight against the people who are on the planet, who aren't mind controlled, who aren't gene stealer cultists. And then the Tyranids Hive fleet shows up, descends upon the planet. They all consume the planet together, consume all the biomass. At the end of the invasion, when they start consuming the biomass, the hive mind releases the psychic control.
Oh no.
Just before they recycle all of the gene stealer cultists.
Well, yeah, they don't need them anymore. They've done the job, right? So
right, but they release control of them so that they suddenly wake up. Well, not just that, they suddenly wake up and realize what has happened and what they've done just before they get consumed into biomass.
Yeah.
Isn't that a dick move?
I kind of like it though.
Yeah.
I'm deciding. I think. Yeah. So, if I do the pink color, because this is going to take an hour to dry. If I do this now and then I carry on painting the purple and stuff,
yeah,
I have a good chance of it being half done by the time I get there. So, yeah, I will do that now. Which brush? I have so many brushes. I get to like, which brush now? Amazing.
Nice. So, going deeper into the hive mind.
Had my hand on my hive mind. Yep. Don't know what that noise was, but I just got excited.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, okay.
I was so excited.
It can be useful to think of them as essentially like computer programs.
Yeah.
In the sense that you design them to do what they need to do. If you're talking about a Hormagaunt, pretty much all the Hormagaunt needs to do is charge and kill when told.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, its program will be pretty simple. But you can't just have, like, unthinking, let's call them servants, who, do a simple task, like, not doing anything else. With a human, they are confronted with a situation and they have a limitless amount of things they can do about it. With like a Hormagaunt, if it's confronted with a wall, it's either going to climb over it or go back. Or maybe run through it if they can. I don't know. So what you need is more complex organisms who can make decisions.
Yeah.
Like limited decisions, but tactical choices and adjustments to, so it's essentially like if a Hormagaunt is If organic, then charge. Otherwise, return.
Yeah.
Something like a hive tyrant or any of the synapse creatures have more options. They're like, if organic, then surround. If organic, then blah blah blah. If obstacle, then destroy obstacle. That type of thing.
Yeah.
And not only do they have the ability to be to make decisions and to be tactical and all that type of stuff, they also boost the hive mind influence. So they're essentially like a relay. The hive mind connects to the hive ships, which shoots out all of the hive mind's like orders and control to all the other ships, to synapse creatures. And then all of the synapse creatures, like a hive tyrant or a Tyranid warrior, relay that message to all of the littles, and they do their basic program. They run their basic programs. I know for the most part we don't invoke chat, but I like this one. So it's like a Roomba, a really violent one.
A really violent Roomba.
They're just really violent Roombas.
So, bless them. Bless them. They're really horrible, and I'm like, oh, bless them.
See, this is it, isn't it? Like, what is it with you
Don't know.
and horrific organic destroying creatures? Do you just like soulless machines?
Kinda.
Like, organic or not?
They're not soulless. On purpose.
Uh-huh.
This is interesting. I don't think you can see on camera how different the color is, but once it dries, I'm hoping it's not as dramatic.
I can see the tint.
Yeah, it's quite a pinky purple tint.
Yeah.
Which is good, but like I'm a little concerned. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
So it really is essentially like a relay.
Yeah.
Like everything originates from the hive mind and is relayed through, and then there's limited consciousness and decision-making programming going on. It means that when you have synapse creatures and when you have this whole connection, this relay, they work as one, and they don't have things like fear or anything along those lines. It's very, very useful, but very, very open to exploitation and to essentially it's got a lot of weakness to it too.
Yeah, if you specialize, it's got its pitfalls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why they create so many synapse creatures if they can, because the more synapse creatures, the less likely the chain of command is broken, and everything devolves into like animalistic instinct or like basic programming, I guess.
I love how we talk about it in like proper binary, like they're robots.
Well, I mean, they kind of are,
Like, and those are my favorite.
Yeah. To be fair, the hand, fingers, muscles, brain thing is very, so like when fighting and when acting, they essentially act as like a hand. They have the muscles, they have the fingers, they have the. You don't find your pinky finger like wandering off to do its own thing.
Yeah,
it's all doing what you're instructing them to do. So yeah, that's does that kind of explain the synapse and the hive mind?
Yeah, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think it's very sensible. Oh, I have a thought.
Hmm.
So the hands and sub thingies don't
Yeah.
have a soul. They're just things. But obviously, we don't know what happens if the hive mind was to die. But does their I don't know destruction and species benefit a chaos god in any way or any specific one? I would guess like corn, but everything is
But
excessive and it's kind of I don't
you
know,
mean you mean the death of Tyranids, or
just generally like they don't worship anything, but
no?
um does their
Well,
wanton
they
destruction
not
benefit
really.
anyone
I
generally?
mean, like, so the things they fight will have a bit of a ripple in the warp because
Mm-hmm.
they're either scared or there's high emotions there. But the all of the Tyranids, including the synapse creatures, who are psychers, like the way they communicate, the way they relay is psyker abilities. They have psyker creatures even, but none of them have a presence in the warp. Demons aren't attracted by the Tyranids at all.
Hmm. Has there ever been a fight between demons and Tyranids?
There has. The Tyranids, for the most part, never had any interest in chaos and demons.
Mm-hmm.
But more recently, they have been attracted to demon places and demons and things. It's weird and worrying.
How exciting
Yeah.
for me. Sorry, I'm really having to
So,
get into all these little nooks and crannies trying to make sure that it's all a very similar kind of colour.
oh yeah, no problem.
Hard work.
Yeah, so it's not known why they aren't a presence in the warp. Their death or their actions do nothing for chaos.
Mm.
However, if the hive mind was to be killed, that's like a big, big entity now, probably. It's all conjecture. It's very possible it would have massive ramifications in the warp.
Is anyone like
Possibly.
actively searching for the hive mind to destroy it, or is it just like let's just leave that alone?
I mean, it's another one of those things where it's possible that there's individuals or very small strike forces that might be searching.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that ultramarine librarian is like searching through the hive mind, trying to find the fucking thing, like a
Mm.
location, an ASL or something.
That's a little throwback.
Yeah. However, it's much like the Tau. Technically speaking, the Imperium could like gather all its forces up and go and stomp on the Tau and destroy them. But when you focus your forces too much, everyone else goes,
Yeah.
"Hello."
Hello.
Um,
I'm gonna
so
destroy you now whilst you're looking the other way.
to my knowledge, no.
Okay. I'll accept that.
But there's possibilities that individuals or small factions are.
Look how cool this looks.
Right?
Man, when did I get so good at painting? Ha. I'm gonna ruin it now because I've been so proud of it. I'm gonna end up ruining it. Ooh.
So,
So,
there is the novel, the way they travel through the warp.
novel.
Um, yeah, it's a small bioship,
Okay.
um, which essentially is the thing that helps them travel through the warp quickly. Uh, the thing is it's not really super detailed.
Hmm.
They pretty much use the in. I'll direct quote this because it's easier. In some unknown manner, it then makes the use of the origin star system's own gravity and creates a compressed space-time transit corridor through which the novel and other Tyranid bioships can traverse interstellar distances. Like that's it's one of those things where it's like science stuff. Don't worry about it.
Science happens. Please don't ask me anymore because I don't have a degree in that, nor does this technology exist yet.
Well, I mean, warp travel doesn't exist either, but
Yet.
it is what it is.
Well, you don't know.
That's true. Pardon me. I'm trying to remember the name of the. Is it Interstellar? There's a film which like everything. No, Event Horizon, and everyone says Event Horizon is a 40k a Warhammer 40k film.
I don't really remember.
They essentially travel through inverted commas. They essentially travel through the warp and get stuck there without a Geller field.
It's been a long time since I've watched that film, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah. No, it's good. You know what the ramifications of being stuck in the warp without a Geller field is, right?
There's like you are susceptible to all the warp entities. You don't know where you're going. Things start falling apart. Everything explodes. The world's awful. Bad
Walls
decisions.
start bleeding. Ghosts start wandering through the corridors, and then
get yourself
demons
will
will start knocking on the door, being like, "Yo, what up? Can I come in?" And you're like, "No," and they're like, "Oh, I was joking. I didn't need an invite." And then they're just like, "Boom." Unless you're an orc, in which case it's like demon party time. You just get to fight shit.
A great time.
Yeah, like you're on your way to a war, just have a quick fight on the way. Like let the demons in.
Yeah.
So I think when we come back, shall we talk about the units?
Yes, the different units, because interesting. This purple is not as different to the other purple as I thought it was.
Ew.
But it will work out fine, as it always does, so it's all good. Okay,
Hell yeah.
that is the end of this video. We'll see you next time.
Whoop, whoop.